Hey, good morning. I wanted to walk through a house and show you some things that stood out as I spotted them showing the home the other day. So I'm on the exterior of the home. Before I'm walking in, I just want to point out some things that will cause me to look closer at possible structural issues in a home. So if you look at this gap here, you can see how this whole set of stairs has fallen. Here's where it was originally, and now it's down to here. Then you've also got, I spotted a shim here, and this post is doing nothing. Now, a lot of times you'll find that this is actually not a structural component, but you don't want to have that kind of gap in movement. So I just look at it and say, what I want to do is take a little bit closer look in the home as I'm walking through. Naturally, when you're walking through a home, you're looking for things about how well it appeals to you, the floor plan, the layout, the updates, that kind of thing. I'm looking for things that could potentially be an issue in the future. So let's take a look inside as well. Okay, so now we're walking into the home, and so I'll immediately start looking for anything that would be of a concern, like I mentioned, outside. I look down here and I can see a gap right here at the base of the stairs. This is a platform. And if you come down and look straight down, you can see the unevenness of the tiles. And you can see that it doesn't match up. And you'll see that there's been movement somewhere in here. So now I'm going to start looking for cracks and gaps throughout, mostly in the basement area, because that's usually where you're going to get the most of it. And we'll see how severe it may or may not be. Okay, so as I'm walking around in a basement, I will try to be sensitive to feel it in the floor. Sometimes it's a good idea to take off your shoes, walk across, and you can see how much movement's been there. And I start looking for cracks and gaps. There's also what's called an expansion joint. But if you look right here, you can see that there's a big change, a variation right there. So that means that this portion of the slab has fallen, or that portion has heaved up. This slab, when homes are constructed, the foundation wall is what's poured first, and then they will pour the basement slab. But this is intended to be independent of the foundation wall. It's not necessarily structural, but it can cause problems. So here's how I can show you that the basement floor is independent, is because the walls in a basement, if it's constructed correctly, will have the walls are actually suspended from the ceiling, and the slab can move up and down. So as you come into this room, or any room that is unfinished, doesn't have carpet, drywall finish, look for movement. And you'll see, starting in this corner to this corner, which is right above the stairs that we saw the movement, you'll be able to see where that slab has fallen. And then we can also look around the house to see what other telltale signs there are. Okay, and in continuing my walk through, I'm going to look for anything that would also give me the idea that there has been movement. So this is a sump pump. Typically, you're not going to see a sump pump in a hall closet. That was installed at a later date. They probably experienced movement, expansive soils, so they were looking for a solution. It wasn't until later that we started to install what are called perimeter French drains around the home, and so they have to try and get any moisture they'll go to the lowest point as possible so water can drain into that, and then that will eject it out. So a sump pump that's been installed at a later date in a closet is also a telltale sign that there's been movement here. Okay, now we're in a bedroom that when I came in the other day, I noticed as I walked into the corner, you can feel the gravity pull. So I'll take a step back and look at corner to corner and then start looking down there, and you can see transitions in the baseboard. And you'll see that they obviously have installed this much larger baseboard, because as you look back through the house, this is 6 or 8-inch baseboard throughout the home is the smaller, darker baseboard. So this was deliberately changed out. That's not to hide anything. It's just that probably because the slab had fallen, it probably did not look good with that big gap. But whenever I see changes in baseboards, doors, things like that, then I start to go, well, why did they do that? And so obviously in this room, that's why they did it. They probably had the most movement in this room. Okay, so walking into this bathroom, I look down and notice that the bathroom shower has been elevated, which is odd to me. Why wouldn't it be sitting on the slab floor? That's where they are, that's where the drain is. Probably because of the movement. So most likely, at some point in the past, the slab fell, causing a gap between the drain and the drain at the base of the pan and the drain in the floor. So they elevated it. I would suspect that there's probably an extension or something that can flex and move underneath there. And then they covered this up, and that allows this shower to be used. So again, it's just things like that that I notice that I am always curious about. Why would that happen? Well, in this house, I would say it's most likely a structural issue or a slab issue that needs to be corrected. So again, I think it's very important to have a professional look at these things and determine how much it would cost to correct it before submitting an offer on the home. Or just obviously you want to know what you're getting into before you get in too deep. Okay, one thing that is important to be considering when buying older homes is the windows. These are the original aluminum double pane windows, but the gap is very small. When you see all of this in the window, obviously some may be dirt on the outside, but when you see what's called condensation, that's because the seal between the two has broken or popped. And so that over time will just produce more and more fog. You'll see houses that have old fogged up windows. There was a company called Oldak that made wood windows. They were actually constructed and manufactured in Northwest United States, completely different climate. This is an arid alpine desert. So they come down here in the wood, and over time it shrinks and pops and breaks and they break down. So the Oldak windows almost always have to be replaced. And then these old aluminums, for more efficiency, will need to be replaced as well, because just over time, that's a less and less efficient window. So windows can be expensive. You can usually count up, walk around the house, and you measure, the hole. This hole would be around $500 to $800, depending on the type of window you get. You can go really expensive windows, or you can go middle of the road. But around $500 for every hole in the house. Some will be small windows, some will be bigger, but if you just do that, it'll give you a pretty good idea of what the total cost will be to replace all the windows in the house if it's necessary. If it's simply fogged over and it's a newer vinyl window, you can just replace the glass. Just like a kid threw the ball through it, they'll come out, pop the glass out, put new glass in. You don't have to replace all of the components of the window. So just another thing to look for. Okay, so another area I'm going to go to find flat surfaces that could be compromised is obviously going to be the garage. So I walk in and start to scan around and look, and I start to see the gaps in these baseboards. And then if you notice here, you can see all the drywall tape that is twisted because it's gone, it's fallen. And so I'm starting to see those gaps. Then I'm going to look at the garage floor. Nowadays, you'll see where it has these grids, and those are called expansion joints that allows each one to move without affecting the entire floor. But if you can look at this floor, you'll see that there's pretty substantial cracks in this floor that have been patched up over the years, because obviously it looks to me like it's heaved up from the middle and it's draining off like this. So a garage floor is supposed to be from the back of the garage out to the driveway at a tilt, so that when you come in with snow, a wet car from the rain or whatever, it drains out and away from the house. If it heaves in the middle or goes like this, it's coming back to the house, and you don't want that. You want to correct it. So just always make sure that you've got, these are not quote unquote structural problems, but it can be pretty expensive to have somebody come in here and correct all the flat work in the home, in the basement, on the garage, and the front sidewalk. It could be substantial. So you just want somebody that's a professional that does that to come out and give you an accurate bid before you move forward with this home.